All right, Destiny. How I fell out of love with my favorite game. I like hearing different perspectives. It's also great bait, baby.
Man, there really was something special about old Destiny, wasn't there?
That music,
Just
man.
the feeling of it. I'm nostalgic for it now because I really like playing it, but I was nostalgic for it like a week after it came out. And people can relate to that. But why? How did they make that happen? Maybe it's got something to do with how much Destiny drew from the cultural titans of nostalgia, things that were old and loved. The Wild West, Star Wars, high fantasy, Halo, the closest thing to the musical character of John Williams in The Lord of the Rings that a video game score had ever been. And not only did one of the Beatles help compose it, he sang for it too. Destiny was made from old love. But beneath the aesthetic was also a heart, that division of Tolkien and Star Wars between fundamental forces of light and dark, an elevation of heroes and legend, an endorsement of hope. None of which made Destiny good, but perhaps refreshing for its unusual sincerity. What other Western action game, what other shooter would have been willing to center itself without irony on something that might have seemed so naive, so childish to the gaming culture of the time? What other game like this would have called itself something as unmanly as Destiny? This was something old, but here it was something new. Destiny was familiar, but it wasn't generic, and despite its nostalgic inspirations, it did not have its mind stuck in the past. Destiny's past was dead. The old world was ruins and we could never go back. This was about going forward, into a new world where things were strange again. Guardians were cast as timid explorers scratching at the edges of vast cosmic mysteries, all so much bigger than us and the tiny enclave of humanity we fought for. Everything was a mystery. Out there, stalkers from ravaged galaxies.
Dude, what is it about the music in D1, man, that just hits so right, dude? Is it nostalgia? It's gotta just be nostalgia right now. It was just so good. I feel like the music is still really good in Destiny, right? But it's just some of those old beats, man. It's like one of those things, like if you heard in the middle of like grocery shopping, you would probably you would just stop and right there on the spot and just be teleport to the universe of Destiny. Would you say Destiny 1's music is better than Destiny 2's? Easily. Yes. I think D2 music is still really, really good though, man. I actually will download just the OST, man. Some of the orbit music inside of D1 was just killer. Like the kind of stuff that you would just leave on and like, you know, be chilling around your house doing something and then you just hear it in the background. You're like, what is going on up there?
He's away hunted in the wastes of Earth and the outer worlds that once belonged to us. Out there were dragons that could make a wish come true, machines that stole time, and philosophies with fangs. And we were walking into its open jaw to buy time for our dying god. Everything was just hanging on. Everything loomed. But the music in particular understood that there was more emotion to be found in that than fear. There was beauty, untold and divine. There was hope for our people. Feelings as simple and bright as curiosity and wonder. The possibility of adventure. Humanity was lost, but Destiny thought it would be a beautiful thing to find something new. The story Destiny told with words was kind of awful, and the parts that weren't awful were all on the lore cards, none of which could even be read in the game. But if you listen to Bife, you're sure to be glad, because this was some premium shit, man. This was Seth Dickinson before Seth Dickinson became Seth Dickinson. And so My Name is Bife became My Name is Bife, and a million people would come to hear it spoken. So rich it was in character, thinking, and mysteries, yet more and yet deeper. That the world we walked through in-game was filled from door to horizon with history, and most of all, with imagination. The world was new, and we had every reason to believe that when Destiny found its footing, one day, we would get to meet some of those imaginings, answer some of these mysteries. So I was willing to see beyond what I was shown, to believe in what wasn't really there. What added to the vibe was the fact that we were discovering the game itself too. Destiny was new and also not finished, which meant very little was explained, so to do things right, we were forced to discuss them online. And the upside of that was that Destiny very quickly formed a strong community, strong bonds, as players were made to share in this communal feeling of discovery. It was true both of the gameplay and of the story.
Hold on, I gotta look back on this. Hold on, we gotta read this. Destiny, Gallahorn. If this post gets 5,000 upvotes, this will become a Club Penguin themed subreddit. 72,000. Oh my god.
Were made to share in this communal feeling of discovery. It was true both of the gameplay and of the story. We needed Bife to read us the lore because there was no convenient way of doing it ourselves. We needed Datto to tell us how to complete the exotic quests because the alternative was agony. and we certainly needed someone to teach us how to do the raids, because apparently the most complicated encounters in the game didn't warrant so much as like a text box. I really do believe that at some point, Bungie became aware of the fact that they could unofficially outsource Destiny's tutorialization to its online community, and in one way that mattered, the game would actually benefit from doing so. This connection between content and community has only strengthened in the years since, the raid of the final shape being completed for the first time in the world, which is usually streamed as a race by major members of the community, was necessary to unlock the final mission for everyone else. The online community was, in this way, made a meaningful part of the narrative universe. That's a hell of a thing, and Bungie know it. They know how it appeals to people, to feel like they're a part of something. Destiny was the first MMO-like game to enter the AAA console sphere, so for many players, it was the first time a game had ever made them feel that way. I suppose if one word could truly unify what made Destiny special back then, it would be discovery. A world of wonder to be discovered together. When that magic was at its strongest, Destiny was my favorite video game. I think, and I still can't quite believe this, that was the most I have ever loved a video game. Sometimes I fear that I'll never feel that way about any game again, which is remarkable, really, because Destiny kinda sucked balls. The shooting was good, thank God, but the loot was bad, the balance was bad, the content was bad, the story, oh, that was bad. Nothing made sense. Man, back then you could open a legendary engram and get a blue. The psychic damage that unleashed onto the world rivals the invention of the nuclear bomb. And yet, Destiny was loved, and Destiny lived, because the shooting was good, and there were friends, and a magic that not only made the game worth playing, but worth waiting for, worth hoping for. We all wanted to see Destiny become the game it was meant to be. So few games get what it was given, a second chance. If I knew then that Destiny would survive even one more year, let alone 10, I would have been overjoyed. But if I had such a window to the future, then I would also have to know something terrible. That in 10 years' time, Destiny wouldn't be my favorite game. That it wouldn't even be a game I played. That Destiny would still be alive, but it wouldn't anymore be loved. For those of you who don't know, I used to make Destiny videos. My kind of awful critique of Destiny 2 Vanilla was one of the first videos that did well on my channel. Did it again for Forsaken, then again for Shadowkeep. I said I'd keep going, but I stopped. It wasn't because I wasn't interested. It's because I didn't know how to make the video I needed to make. I've tried, man. I've tried to write this thing 6 times since Shadowkeep. What came out was always some complicated haze of feelings that I could never properly tie into a full review of the current expansion. So, lucky number 7 then, with a simpler goal. I'm just gonna tell you why I fell out of love with what was once my favorite game. This video won't be a catalogue of everything the game's done wrong since launch, every reason someone might have fallen out of love. It's personal, it's my reasons, it's biased, it had to be. But maybe you'll see some of yourself in here too. And make no mistake, I'm not here to tell you Destiny is bad either, because it's not. Apart from all the bits which are bad, obviously, it's actually better than ever. I don't hate Destiny. I like Destiny, and I think it is good, but I used to love it. That's the difference. For me, I think it started with the story. The darkest fate that Destiny's imaginings would ever have to endure was entering the sphere of stories told by Destiny, the game. A border like an event horizon that when crossed renders things simple, hollow, and like this simile, kind of clumsily executed. And that's made painful by the times they do it right. Moments in The Witch Queen, the Vanguard arcs in the final shape. For the most part though, Destiny's characters are flat and predictable. There's a version of the darkness that's interesting, but it's not the one we get in the game. It's devoid, like the stakes, established by insisting upon them. Endless verbal reminders that if you don't stop the current thing, the world's gonna explode. But even if they tried to make you believe that, they couldn't follow through, because a live service like this demands stability. It doesn't like to change. And we've gotten used to that now. We know that the potential for whatever we face to make something happen is limited. We know the traveler will be safe and the city will not be lost. We lose an ally. The helm drops out of the sky. But you don't believe in stakes beyond the small, the plots, made mostly of contrived complications. Here's the thing you need to do. But to do that, first, shoot the 3 sacred fuckos in the 3 sacred caves. Why? Because I said a bunch of big fantasy words like the veil and the radial mast. Okay? Don't make me say another one. Don't make me say f***ing paracausal, because I will. Now go on, get moving. The storytelling, so primitive. Even now, we jolt from pre-rendered CGI cutscenes that look nothing like the game itself, to inkblock cutscenes, to in-game conversations, to text boxes appearing next to the in-game characters, and you're just supposed to buy into the idea that it's a continuous experience. Through the unusual mechanics of the dungeons and the raids, Destiny is able to make the arcane character of its world something you can actually experience through play. The only time the Vex have ever been intimidating is in the Vault of Glass, where you're forced to hide from the Gorgons stalking the depths of the maze, waiting to eat their victim from time. The Abyss makes darkness a physical weight that slows your frantic dash from light to light, while a chattering horde screams from the shadows, following only seconds behind. It feels to play about what I imagined when I first looked into the Hellmouth. Even the more creatively restricted boss encounters were mostly able to deliver on the otherworldliness of these beings by asking the non-obvious of you, oftentimes an almost esoteric rituals practiced to access the damage phase. The world never seems larger.
Bungie's got to bring it back, man. Like I don't know what the holdup is, but they got to bring it back. We need Wrath, dude. Unless you have plans of making like the only thing I can think of why it's not back in the game is if Bungie plans on making some sort of Siva expansion in the future, which, let me just be real, I'm not that excited about, because I know the lore behind Siva, but it was like, all right, one and done, Rise of Iron, whatever. Didn't they say it wasn't worth bringing the assets back or something? I just think that there's not enough people demanding it. You know what I mean?
Ritual is practiced to access the damage phase. The world never seems larger, stranger, its premises never more convincing than they are when they are expressed through gameplay. It was always going to be difficult to tell a story about paracausal forces and minds beyond comprehension through the medium of an FPS MMO, because whenever we got close to those things, we would need to be able to shoot them, and for that to happen, they would need to be reduced to a form that could be shot. The darkness, this paracausal entity, would need a head for damage phases and a mouth to scream no. I mean, it's not like Bungie had to make it look like that. You know, sticking anime eyes and a monobrow and a spunk splash wouldn't have been my first choice, but the point is, it was never going to feel quite right to defeat a being like that with a gun. So the fact that they even got close is remarkable, and that's made very clear when there's nothing but a gun. Didn't feel right at all to kill Courier in a seasonal mission, or the worm god Zol at the end of a strike. Only sometimes does Destiny maintain its standard of interaction.
God, dude, that's so true. Keep in mind, though, Zol was a little bitch. Out of all the worms, Zol is the weakest of the worm. But I do agree, the fact that we handled Zol in a strike and Courier as well at the end of the season mission just felt like it felt anticlimactic.
At the end of a strike. Only sometimes does Destiny maintain its standard of interactive storytelling outside of dungeons and raids. And because outside dungeons and raids is most of the game, and because most people won't engage with dungeons and raids at all, there's only so much the gameplay can do to help with Destiny's narrative shortcomings. And in fact, when you look at the game's normal mission content, the standard of storytelling ain't always so much lower as it is low. Not bad, but not really doing anything good, perhaps in part because of open world design. Anything that takes place in an open world environment, or that could be accessed from an open world environment, which is a lot of Destiny, can be returned to at any time. For that reason, nothing can be specific to any particular narrative moment. It's also the case that open world space probably isn't going to change very much either. It needs to be consistent, permanent, static. That's limiting. Destiny's storytelling then ranges from remarkable to remarkably flat. It was the final shape that found a way to buck the trend. The Traveler's pale heart is made of memories and feelings given form by the light, so its space can have this narrative specificity while also being permanent and unmoving in the way open worlds like to be. Another exception would be Forsaken, when we swung open the doors to the dreaming city and came upon a world fractured. One, a usual static patrol space, linked by portals to the other, the Ascendant Plane, a space that could be anything Bungie wanted it to be, and they wanted it to tell the story of two wills at war, of two god queens and a dragon whose wishes came true. It was vast and so strange, and so it made you believe in the vastness and the strangeness of the beings behind it all. It did what the raids did, and it did that with space not tied to an open world. Yet, the same expansion showed us that the open world was not entirely inflexible. Every week, a consistent schedule, the kingdom changed, in every way that was practical for it to change. Music, color, skybox, what missions could be done, and as the city went about its loop, and you ventured back into the Ascendant Plane, the plot was unraveled. Interesting plotting. Plotting that reflected the nature of the world. That was a rare thing. That was cool. And I'm not trying to say we should have had more things just like that. I'm certainly not saying I expected that standard consistently. I'm saying that it proved Destiny was capable of delivering large narrative arcs in interesting ways, and that the flatness so common to the Destiny we got outside of dungeons and raids was not inevitable. Which leaves me with the world at large. Turns out, the Traveler has an evil twin, a dark inversion. The Veil. It's the reason the Witness couldn't finish us at the first collapse, it's the way he'll do it this time. And it was introduced out of nowhere, and not once explained during the story it was invented to excuse, but the characters acted like all of this was obvious, which caused a bit of an outrage. So, a few months later, randomly and without context, we got an inkblot cutscene that explained the Veil and the true nature of the darkness. It was the most important revelation there had ever been, and it was an inkblot cutscene that was dropped randomly and without context. It's never felt like there's been a plan. The overarching plot of the Destiny saga has simply meandered towards an end, with some things focused on and others forgotten. There's no politics in the Lost City anymore. The factions have disappeared. The war mines turned out to be one war mine.
See, Lakshmi was good. All right? She kept things spicy. You know what I mean? Now you just have this one unified front at the tower. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
They also turned out to be pointless, and complexity within the ranks of the Cabal or the Vex is no longer discussed. The scale has shrunk, with it complexity and nuance, qualities of this world that made it so interesting. But then consider the threat. The Vex should be the most significant threat we've ever faced. I know that, and I used to believe it too. It was easy then, because I had no evidence to the contrary. Now, things have changed, by which I mean nothing has changed. My evidence is that the Vex have just sort of spent the last 10 years waddling about the place doing bugger all besides getting their dicks knocked off whenever Bungie needs some emergency fodder. All this time, with all this nothing, has made them feel toothless and irrelevant. And a lot of this universe could now be thought of like that. The city has had a lot of time too. When Destiny began, humanity was made to feel so small. The last flicker of a dying...
Right. Well, the Vex, remember, they haven't even been sending their best warriors, supposedly. They've been sending, like, their workers for whatever reason.
Flame. That's not how we're made to feel anymore. In terms of art, or more tangibly, in terms of narrative. We've recovered so much of what was lost from the Golden Age, uncovered an existing Golden Age city, allied with half the known universe, and shot the other half in the face. So, it feels a bit weird that the last city is just still a pile of junk, that the original tower has not been repaired, that no one's bothered to fill in those giant fucking craters, or that we haven't expanded beyond the last city. Is there a lore reason for that? If there is...
What is our economic presence in the universe? What is the GDP of the tower right here for us not to be repairing these motherfucking potholes and fixing that other damn tower? Ha! That thing's been under construction now for 7 years.
It would be really good if it was in the game. It's a further problem that not really knowing what humanity's situation actually is makes it hard to get a grip on whatever stakes could still exist, which is made even harder by our continued distance from the people of the city, or non-guardians in general. We have moved from questions to answers. We have met Destiny's imaginings and its vast horizon. We have spent 10 years watching it change and climbed a ladder for that long made from the bones of its gods. And to be honest, it wasn't that vast, or strange, or interesting, or emotional, and I don't really believe in it anymore. I felt so rarely what I hoped to feel when I was sold on this world in the stories told by the game, and too rarely did I feel anything at all. Those vast mysteries faded as the saga pushed towards close, but the answers we found did not fill the hole they left, and my willingness, back when there was nothing but worlds and lore, to see beyond what I was shown, was not often enough rewarded. And I know nothing can ever really live up to what you imagine or what you hope for. I was always going to be a little bit let down, but this wasn't just a little bit. And there's not much left. Destiny expects us to believe in a future, even with the darkness defeated. But while the world was slowly demystified as the years have gone by, it hasn't grown that much. It hasn't gotten much bigger so that the horizon might keep pace with our reach. There's not much left in the world that makes me wonder. Not much ladder left to climb, but even if there was, the trend's been set. I know I'd likely be disappointed with what I found. This isn't a world about which I think anymore. My imagination has gone silent. That's one kind of death. Perhaps some part of the flatness of Destiny's narrative content was a motivated choice. Small and simple is a lot easier to follow, and that matters, in large part because this is a multiplayer game. Multiplayer means social interaction. Social interaction is distracting as hell, which creates a powerful incentive to write simply and without subtlety, to make it easy to keep up from a distance. I wonder if this notion of being easy to follow at a distance is why Destiny's really struggled to deliver on one of its core intentions, to question the traditional association of light with good and dark with evil. Endlessly will the game say to you that that's what's happening, but it just won't give up its coveted simplicity. So the most you get is the idea that maybe we shouldn't trust the Traveler completely? Bump it down to like 95%, while Destiny continues to reward our faith in the...
You know what he's talking about, right? He's saying that Destiny has been solved. And that even the moments where Bungie tries to garner intrigue, the quote that he said, "My imagination has gone silent." He doesn't have the desire to reach out and wonder anymore. The mystery is gone, things like that. You know, it's definitely a problem, I feel like, or at least I hope Bungie is aware of, because that's going to be part of the things that Frontiers is going to have to address. It's a fair critique. I mean, I get it, you know, it's a fair critique. I will say that the other part of things where he said that the story is made simple so that even from a distance, the community will still be on board or still be included, right? Like anyone from ages 3 and up should be able to understand parts of Destiny's narrative. However, there is of course exceptions for this, and many annual expansions, you know, whether it's the Taken King, Forsaken, Witch Queen, Final Shape, but even more so than that on like a seasonal level, this season, Heresy is one of those that brings in a lot of depth that I felt like for the first time we've got writing here in front of us that is really meant for our demographic, our age, and like Bungie's actually swinging up instead of swinging down. And that's been seen in the dialogue between Oryx and his sisters, the things that he said to us directly. It's great, man. Heresy's been really, really good. And I know I'm like really puffing this episode up, but like, you know, writing wise and you know, even the cutscenes and stuff, like I really like the delivery of this episode.
Light, and makes most things that align with or are of the darkness as evil can be. The witness bleats in all the usual ways about how the weak deserve to die and the strong deserve to live. His top man is called Nezarec, the final god of pain. Is he just misunderstood? His final shape is supposed to tempt because it would mean the end of suffering. But in practical terms, the end of entropy is another way of saying death. His plan is to kill everything. You can see how empty all this has been when you look back on the last 10 years and ask yourself what you've learned. Okay, so the Traveler isn't entirely altruistic, and there are some kinds of darkness that aren't inherently evil. But everything we believed at the start of Destiny 1 is basically still true. I'm guessing we also have Bungie's attempts to make their content attractive from a distance to blame for the worst expansion Destiny has ever seen. Lightfall. Everything about Lightfall is meant to be fun. It's 80s schlock, which is fantastic when you're trying to sell an expansion, but somewhat challenging when you're writing the penultimate chapter to the battle for the fate of the universe. The darkness had come. The Traveler was at knife point. This was bigger than Oryx, bigger than Riven or Savathûn. But Lightfall was irreverent. You didn't believe the danger because you couldn't feel it. Osiris was forced to relentlessly insist upon the stakes, because if he hadn't, it would have been easy to forget why you were there to begin with. But let's say Lightfall had come out when the overarching narrative stakes were low. One problem would still exist. Doesn't really feel like Destiny, does it? It's not mythic.
Lightfall was meant to fail? What are you talking about? You're saying Bungie made an expansion? What strategic play would that serve? Why would you make an expansion to strategically fail? Whatever that means. So P can get more cores? Guess what? If that was the logic, turns out if it would have succeeded, he could have got even more cores, right?
Sci-fi, it's just sci-fi. The tone isn't a mix of dread and hope, it's largely frivolous. But really, that's the surface. What makes Lightfall feel out of place is the fact that it feels like the art is the product of influences outside Destiny's universe. In an immersive setting, it should be easy to explain the art using the setting. Europa can be explained rationally. A science and a history made this place. On the other hand, Arkham Asylum can't very well be explained rationally, but it can be explained expressionistically. It's an expression of the characteristics of Arkham Asylum. Now, how do we explain Lightfall? The 80s stuff, where does that come from? Why does Neomuna look like that? Why the B-movie aesthetics in the story? Why does Nimbus talk like a 21st century teenager? The answer is, because Lightfall is the fun expansion. The art seems to come, in large part, from something outside the confines of Destiny's universe. And that's what feels wrong, that here the world feels made for its audience, instead of its inhabitants. Which it is, of course, but you want to be able to forget that. Lightfall is the worst this has ever been. It is an exception. And yet, it is not the only reason that Destiny's artistic identity has lost a certain amount of focus. Tess S. Everis. I'm so tired of Tess shit in Everis. Because now the game is f***ing filled to the brim with overwrought baubles meant specifically to look unlike what everyone else is wearing, to look more than the common wear. And it does, but it always looks less than Destiny. The problem not being that Guardians aren't the arcane outlaws they used to be, but that they can no longer really be described as anything other than space heroes, I guess. And since everyone gets some Eververse content free and everyone's likely to use what they get, we find ourselves surrounded by ships and sparrows and armor and effects so removed from Destiny's baseline that Destiny's baseline has almost disappeared. Things that don't look like they belong in this universe have become the norm. Emotes serve a powerful social design purpose. Finishers have a mechanical role. Both have reason to be here, and neither had to look out of place in Destiny, but they often do, because Bungie wants people to buy them. Transmat effects and ghost projections, however, were always going to look a bit weird, but they're here because Bungie wanted more types of thing to sell. Tess has spread her corporate herpes all over the tower for the past 8 years, and it has corroded Destiny's identity like an acid. But what if it's also gotten a little bit worse? Now that's a tricky one, because depending on the time, Destiny might have been punching at all-time highs. Savathun's throne world, the light-drenched Hive Queen's dream cathedral, where the Hive at their most demonic contrasts with that same architecture shaped into something holy. Symmetrical, beaming white, which highlights for our horror the acceptance of their evil into the light. Or the Traveler's Pale Heart, which is constantly unique, constantly changing, and rich with specific narrative meaning. Yeah, when the glazers and haters of Destiny both share the same praise of the art team and bring it up like a tick, they ain't wrong. But not all of the new stuff is quite this good. Like Neomuna, it's pretty, but Destiny is supposed to be more than just that. As much as sin is the fact that it's completely generic. It's a sci-fi city with an 80s vibe. And that's it. We see that it's powered in part by Neptune's winds, that's pretty cool, and that the population is digital, but that's only used as an excuse to avoid having to render them. And it's not like they didn't have a decent source of inspiration. Not only is it set in the Destiny universe, it's set, as it clearly knows, on Neptune. A planet as dark and violent and lonely and large and as beautiful as that. The problem with being generic is that it makes the world expected, and one of the best things about Destiny is discovery. The word Bungie used to use was adventure, but adventure doesn't work if you know where you're going and what you'll see on the way. Take Europa. Unlike Neomuna, I really like Europa. Its biggest problem is probably just being a little underbaked, but it does share with Neomuna the problem of being expected. It's just Europa. It's made out of ice. There are also some glaciers, some snow, and some frozen water. But Venus? Man, that was not what I expected. The Traveler was such a powerful creative tool. Nowhere it touched was forced to be usual, and Venus kept itself unusual as we pressed past the Ishtar Collective and found ourselves in the regions of the Vex, just like we do on Europa. Difference being, these are as usual as Vex structures can be, and on Venus, there was that. A great big fucking question towering above the surface. Other difference being that on Venus, the Vex were new. On Europa, they're not. That's a big privilege to lose, and it means we need to see something different. Bad? Never. Not even close. But we're not talking about the difference between good and bad. We're not even talking about something I don't like. We're talking about something I do like, that I used to love. Which brings me to the moon. On the surface, it's just the moon, right? Expected. Well, aside from the fact that this one structure is more interesting than anything on the outside of Europa, the answer to that is no.
At Bungie, we really believe that mystery and adventure begin at the intersection of the expected and the unexpected. At places in the world where strong visual themes collide, where the familiar meets the strange.
So yes, the moon would be usual, but then it would crack, peel apart, a pale green light would seep up from below, and eventually your journey would take you spinning down a plug hole, a gaping abyss, the Hellmouth, the moon's great big fucking question. And it's so damn good at being a question. Fogged, dark.
This is such a good point. I know I'm being like incredibly silent right now, but he's proving a fantastic point on what makes the destination stand out above the rest. And using the moon as an example is good. Dreaming City is another one. That's a really good one. You don't have this like static, you see the transitions, or as they said, the expected with the unexpected there, right?
Vast. What's at the bottom? How far does it go? Its promise of descent, darkness, trapped things. It arrests the imagination. It begs for discovery. This vast contrast of the expected and the alien made both the more pronounced.
For people that are sitting there saying this stuff, let me ask you something. When was the last time you've gone back to Neomuna? Considering how much money is put into making destinations inside of Destiny, if Bungie could nail destinations, obviously loot is the biggest incentive in Destiny, but if Bungie can nail exploration and the intrigue of exploring a location and fully 100%ing a place, that would have so much more runway for us going forward. Is imagine whatever the new destination is going to be for Frontiers, if it intrigues us enough to want to explore every little thing about it. And some of you have explored every little thing about the Dreaming City or the Dreadnought. In some cases, some of us here with the moon, right? I'm gonna be honest, like, no one likes the DCV, but I feel like if Neomuna got vaulted, I don't even know if the community would even care, you know?
It was a really neat trick that made it hard to forget. Compare the Hellmouth to the Red Keep. Both of them look metal as fuck, and both do a fantastic job of making you want to go there. Instead of don't you want to see what's at the bottom, it's don't you want to get to the top. But there's one more thing. The Hellmouth is a mystery. It's alien, unlike anything we've ever seen. The Keep is a keep. I want to get inside, but I know what I'll find. We've got keeps on Earth, which, contrary to its intent, makes it less intimidating than anywhere else on the moon. That's the problem with the art of Shadowkeep. It misunderstands that what made the moon unsettling was also what made it interesting. Its strangeness, the unknown. There are literal ghosts now, and screams, and they even threw a couple bricks at the violins for that classic horror sound. But now we know what's there. Now we're less lonely. We go on nightmare hunts, but we're exclusively hunting monsters we've already fought in the first game. They built their horror-themed campaign exclusively out of the familiar, and the result is an expansion that completely undermines what they were trying to double down on. Then look at the colors. Destiny chose its colors with purpose, autumnal and faded to present a feeling of history, of weatheredness, to make its world seem ancient and in that sense vast, to make the collapse visible and its effects clear,
God, this is
to
such
help
a
the
great
weapons
point
and
right
armor
here.
feel like the stuff of legend. Destiny 2 chooses differently. Its colors are much bolder, things stand out a lot more, but something was lost in the process. I do think it's
Dude, there is a great point being made right now. The color palette inside of Destiny 1, it just seemed to nail Destiny better.
I do think it's made the world feel smaller, in the sense that it doesn't make its age as clear, and I wonder if that was the right move, particularly for an expansion meant to host feelings of fear. Context can make things worse too. The EDZ is small and plain, and there's not really anything interesting about it, but that was the right feeling for the Red War. You had been made small. You were cut off from the mythic grandeur of Destiny, but you're not supposed to feel that way anymore, so where does that leave the EDZ? It's kind of boring. I think I've made my point. I fell in love with the fiction of Destiny. It was beautiful and thoughtful, and it made me wonder. Now, it's a bit less beautiful and a lot less thoughtful, and it barely makes me wonder at all. Sometimes the spark came back, sometimes I got what I hoped for. Some parts of Destiny 2 are amazing, but most of the time, it isn't. Most of the time, it's something I like, not something I love. And that's really all I'm here to say, that I don't love a thing I used to love that much, and goddamn, does it hurt. If this were a critique of the state of the game, I would talk about how it has taken an excruciatingly long time for Destiny to make significant gameplay improvements. The build crafting is better than ever, so are the dungeons and the raids, but in comparison to most games with loot in it, Destiny's non-exotic loot still isn't that interesting. And I would make sure to praise Bungie for having solved one of Destiny's oldest problems, content droughts, or more simply, the fact of not having anything to do. And I would go on, but those aren't the things that made me love Destiny, nor the reasons why I don't anymore. They are simply what I do or do not like about it. And if it was someone else making this video, it might be the other way round, or something else entirely. Destiny is many games to many people. It contains more genres of experience inside of it than any other game like it, such that two people can tell you they're big fans of Destiny and barely share an experience in common. It's a competitive shooter and a cooperative shooter and a campaign-driven shooter and a looter shooter and an open world game and an MMO. Each aspect canonized within the same narrative universe. The sheer breadth of Destiny has always been one of its greatest appeals. But what was truly special was not how many kinds of game it was, but what kinds of game it connected. Destiny was the first MMO to also be a AAA game, the first Halo to also be World of Warcraft, the first Call of Duty to have raids and an endgame and social spaces, the first World of Warcraft to make sense to someone driven above all by action gameplay, narrative and immersion, or to even be playable on an Xbox or PlayStation. And likewise, it was the first Halo for Spreadsheet Jimmy and Stat Boost John. It was a bridge between two spheres of gaming, until then separated by preference and platform. Destiny was a portal to a whole new world. If anything made it attractive to the mass market, that was it. I suppose then one of the things I loved most about Destiny was always going to fade away. It was new, Truly new. Nothing stays new for long. Thing is though, being this much stuff at once, it is, and it always has been, one of Destiny's biggest challenges. It means compromise, in part because resources are spread thin, but also because of conflicting design goals. Simplicity takes from complexity, live service takes from narrative possibility, design for multiplayer takes from design for single player, quality, which you need to be Halo, takes from quantity, which you need to be an MMO. Immersive loot takes from interesting loot, and balancing for PvP and for PvE at the same time makes both more challenging. It means leaning toward either might harm the other. Remember when Destiny finally built a competitive environment, and it ended up sterilizing the rest of the game for a year? Destiny isn't the best at almost anything it does, because it can't be. But it is the best at being all of them at once, which is why it's very easy to be attracted by Destiny, but it's also very easy to be frustrated by it. If your interests aren't spread as broadly as Destiny is, it can seem to take so long for the game to make progress. It can feel like you're paying more and more with each release to play a game that is probably worse than the relevant competition. There are so many people who felt that way. So many ways to feel it. Here's mine. Seasons fixed Destiny. They filled the gaps between expansions, lifted the content droughts that stopped the game from surviving as the MMO it wanted to be, but they also ruined Destiny for me. Seasons make major advancements to the story, but they are not like the campaigns. They're more of a content system, with loose narrativization that slightly advances week by week, and occasionally decent activities meant to be farmed. When they've done their job to be a 3-month treadmill, off they fuck. They're gone. Seasons of content. Not quality.
Dude,
not
ain't that the truth,
it's rare
man?
that they have the time or the budget to tell their stories well. They're necessary, but for me, they present a difficult problem, because I'm not interested in a game like that. But I am invested in this story, so I can either come back for each expansion and feel like I've been left behind, or I can force myself to schedule Destiny, for fear of missing out, to flatten my interest and passion into a weekly session, the same way I schedule my chores. Destiny compromised. It was the right thing to do, and I do not blame it, but it left me behind. I couldn't care about this game like I used to anymore. The more seasons I missed, the more I felt like it was too late, and on that cycle went. Which leads me on to one of the biggest problems with modern Destiny. It's difficult to be a new player, but I'm not a new player. I am a lapsed player though, and much of what makes it hard to be a new player is also what made it a challenge for me to come back.
Yep.
Fact is, huge chunks of the story aren't in the game anymore. And it's not just the expansions now, it's the also gone seasons between them. So you can either accept that you'll always be slightly behind, or watch a 5-hour sermon from Bife. Who's Crow? Well, you can still do the first mission of Forsaken and find out that he used to be a prick, assuming of course that you somehow find out that you should do that, but the season where he became Crow is gone, so it's YouTube or nothing for that. Who's Mara? Who's Kaital? Who's Hawthorne? What happened to Osiris's ghost? Who even is Osiris? What doesn't help is the way you're introduced or reintroduced to the narrative.
God.
For the most part, you aren't. Certainly not in detail. You might be forced into the first mission of the current season without context, which you can't advance if you haven't bought the season, or perhaps the first mission of the latest expansion, which in this case is the finale of the entire Light and Dark saga. You might need to start from the beginning, and that's not pretty. That's fucking Shadowkeep, which is a problem of its own. Because, you know, it's fucking Shadowkeep. There are 2 main menus, the main menu and the main menu. There are 2 main hubs, the main hub and the main hub. Not only is there an overwhelming number of different kinds of progression, ranging from commendations to engrams to artifacts, aspects, fragments, triumphs, 12,000 currencies, all stuffed into different pockets of the 2 main menus, no one, and this is the big part, no one has any fucking idea what to do next. There are bounties, quests, story campaigns, Vanguard playlists.
He's talking, so he's mainly talking from like a new player perspective or returning player perspective. And I get it, guys. There's not a lot of guidance. And even worse than that, it's like if you go look for a guide online, I could tell you this. Many of our guides will become outdated at some point in the future because the season doesn't even exist. So if there's any overlapping guides, that season doesn't exist anymore, or that content that you were supposed to do for the original weapon or whatever doesn't even exist, or even like build guides. Dude, go look at a build video from 2.5 years ago. Completely different. There's someone out there, and look, this is just the nature of things. And hopefully, you know, YouTube doesn't recommend those videos. But imagine if someone's watching a build video when we had static subclasses. They're probably like, why does my shit look nothing like this? What is this middle tree, top tree bullshit? I think it's a problem that many games face because most games do evolve over time. Whether it's Final Fantasy or other MMOs, man, they just do. So it's kind of the job of the devs to find a way to onboard people. And I could say that Destiny is one of those games that even if you lapse for a couple months, jumping back in is not the easiest thing to do. Dude, somebody out there right now, I guarantee you, is trying to figure out how to spawn Warmind cells. They're like, I'm doing everything. I think I'm doing this right. Where's my Warmind cells? Why is this weapon not, why is Ikelos not making Warmind cells?
There are weekly nightfalls, onslaughts, battlegrounds, legends. What do any of these words mean? In most games, the open world sections are the basic and foundational place to be. But in Destiny, as it turns out, they're totally useless. How are you supposed to know that? No one knows what's best for them, or what they're progressing towards. To get more power? For what, the raids? What's different about the dungeons? Which dungeons are current? Gear is where things get even more troublesome. It's impossible to tell without external guidance what weapons and armor are good, or what specifically makes them good. It's important to know, more important for Destiny than for most looters, because Destiny is quite heavily driven by difficult endgame content. It's important to have a build that is good, and it is not uncommon to be kicked from LFGs for having a loadout that isn't in line with the current meta. I said before that I suspected that Destiny had become aware of the fact that it could outsource its own tutorialization to content creators, and I said that there was an upside. Here is the downside. Content creators create content for large, stable audiences, the biggest in this case being one that takes most of their game knowledge for granted. There are like 40 guys on YouTube making daily videos on how to min-max your Guardian sperm count, and there's a couple of videos for people who know almost nothing. But there is a vast distance between those extremes, and a million ways to be lost therein. When Destiny was new and nothing was explained, everyone was lost and you were lost. Today, no one is lost quite like you. It is difficult to get into Destiny. It's like putting on a wetsuit in a coffin. It's difficult to come back to Destiny. It's like putting on your Spider-Man pajamas in a coffin. And I didn't fall out of love with Destiny because of that, but it made it a lot harder for me to fall back in love with it. So now we can talk about the final thing. Basically, I got tired of the game screwing me over. Because of course, we didn't just give Destiny a second chance, did we? When Destiny failed, we understood. We thought Bungie were the good guys and Activision were the bad guys. And when The Dark Below launched its pitiful content for $20 and called itself an expansion, we understood then too. It would be a hard road to recovery. And it took so long for Destiny to move forward an inch, but you know, the engine was bad, so what can you do? Then came the Eververse store. Now that needed some heavy-duty cope. They were going to fund free content updates. Oh right, there'll be an upside to the company making a boatload of cash in the worst way possible. Well, that's good to know. And it won't get worse, because they wouldn't do that. Hey, I was on board. Love makes you stupid. And then it all happened again with Destiny 2. XP throttling, Curse of Osiris, the fact that the game wasn't good? Forsaken? Incredible. It was Shadowkeep that broke me. This truth that Destiny was worth hoping for had become the meta-narrative of the Destiny community. It was a story we all believed in. It held us together and we used it to make sense of this or that year's failure. It told us that there was some kind of villain, something we imagined to be holding Bungie back. And if only this thing were defeated, the game would finally meet a divine potential. The baddest villain in our mythology was Activision, and after Forsaken, Bungie were going independent, so things would be good now, right? No one really knew how, and it never really made any sense, as if, with Activision gone, as well as Activision support studios, Bungie would somehow be able to make more content, figure out how to tell a story, or want less money. But that's the thing, we believed it anyway. Reality was besides the point. The point was believing in Destiny. Then, reality came. Shadowkeep dropped. It introduced free-to-play and battle passes, on a hollow, charmless campaign too short yet still stretched out, utterly uninteresting in gameplay, and mostly made of content we already had. There were a few good missions, some bangers from Michael Salvatore and the music Mandem. Mostly though, it was the moon again, often worse than it was the first time, and it costed $35. And the meta-narrative just found a new villain. It was because they were also developing free-to-play or something. Okay, that doesn't change the fact that this thing that costs a lot of money isn't very good. It was then I believed there was nothing we would not accept. I mean, there'd be some complaint, but when the next trailer dropped, it would be like nothing happened. So I felt voiceless, paralyzed, and I just stopped, looked away. When I looked back, it turned out that I was half right. The process continued without me. In the Destiny of today, there are droughts of loot while the microtransaction store bursts at the seams. We can pay money for in-game advantages. That battle was lost long ago. But I think my favorite thing is the Dungeon Pass. $20, one-time payment each year. The price of some games for 2 levels of Destiny. And of course, if you just want one of the 2, sorry. And all of this is true in a game where expansions are more expensive than ever. And to keep up with the story, you'll need to pay $10 for the seasons 3 times a year.
That is one good thing that, like, Because Bungie's already talked about what is it with Frontiers and the way dungeons are. Dungeons are going to be a part of Frontiers, right? Or for part of the annual expansion, or is it part of the season? Dungeons are included now. Yeah, dungeon keys. It was just another way for Bungie to grab more money, man. And understand, guys, it's not just that this guy, and some of y'all are making comments that he's just crying about the monetization. Understand, monetization, what does it do? It's a barrier. It's another barrier on top of the content barriers that exist in Destiny. And so it's completely understandable thing. If you're trying to have a robust, flourishing player base, anything you could do to possibly drop barriers is important.
Making this one of the most expensive gaming hobbies it's possible to have. How do you think the Destiny community that was once outraged at the Taken King for being too expensive would react if they could see this now? And all for a game that is still only sometimes good. And it is sometimes good. If you want to experience a solid third of Destiny 2's good, you can't, because Forsaken is now in the Destiny content vault, which is to say, it's gone. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Removing paid content. Not to be downloaded separately. Gone as in fucking gone, man. As in you can't play it anymore. I'm sure it would have been difficult to solve this problem, but since that content was beloved and costed a large amount of money, I sure hope that they tried really hard. But the thing is, none of this means that I was right. I thought this would keep happening, that it would get worse, but I also thought that people would just keep taking it. They didn't. It's been too long. The meta-narrative ran out of villains and ran out of future to promise. The things we understood as the things we were building towards. The end of the Light and Dark saga, this 10-year journey. They got close, and as they did, the impression that Destiny was becoming had to be replaced by the acceptance that Destiny had become. Destiny is no longer hoped for. With the end of Destiny's narrative, its meta-narrative ended too. Destiny's problem today is spiritual. It's the result of 1,000 cuts. Not all of them are about the game itself. Some of them are about what's happened outside it. The CEO collecting classic cars while his company crumbled. The fact that PvP was just abandoned while money and talent were siphoned from Destiny to fund Bungie's other trend-chasing projects. And then there's all the people who lost their jobs. I don't know if there's a future where those jobs survived. I don't know the economic facts, but I do know what was said. I know that among the laid off was Michael Salvatore, which is a bit like deciding to lose weight by cutting out your own heart. A company that doesn't understand that cannot comprehend the immaterial, is blind, and now hollow, it feels like, and it seems unlikely that company would be capable of making the Destiny I want to play. Don't get me wrong, I'll give them a chance, but you have to understand, my heart's not in it anymore. I mean, when you've got laid off community managers, the people who represented Bungie as humanity, ranting about their experiences on Twitter, that does some deep spiritual damage, man. That's rough. That's gonna be hard to repair. And I think that cut those last few threads of connection I had. So now you know why I don't love Destiny anymore. I fell out of love with the world, then it just kept kicking my teeth in. I don't blame it for parts of that, but for a big part, I do. That's why I stopped making Destiny videos. That's what I've wanted to say for the past 6 years. Yeah, it feels good to have finally done it. But Destiny is struggling right now, and that doesn't tell us why, at least not alone. Destiny is struggling to survive because of other people. Other people who could have made a video like this. Other people who've fallen out of love with Destiny for their own reasons. Some of those reasons were inevitable. One of them was good. The story ended. And it actually ended kinda well. And it's hard to survive a good ending. Destiny is also old. I mean nothing more than that. It's an old game, and it ages faster than most because it demands constant attention and the gameplay is good. But people get tired of good things too. It's been 10 years, man. Some of it wasn't inevitable, but that doesn't mean it wasn't difficult to avoid. Seasons are structured well. They do what they're supposed to. But now that Bungie have a structure that works, it never changes. It hasn't changed for such a long time that what has come about is a sense of routine, of predictability, a knowledge that whatever it is you're doing right now, you'll be doing the exact same thing in a few months' time. And from that, a sense of pointlessness. The future is another thing. People struggle to believe in one. The material significance of the layoffs is a company much less capable of making Destiny. And because the universe has failed to repopulate itself with scale, intrigue, and threat, there's the feeling that there's nowhere left to go, no ladder left to climb. Then there's the loot problem. Destiny being old means that the most experienced players have had enough time to get all the best stuff. Stuff that's so good that Bungie struggled to top it without breaking the game. there isn't that much for the hardcore fans to chase anymore. One way of fixing this would be a reset, and a sequel would provide the kind of reset that people would be willing to accept. But to do that, Bungie would need a huge amount of money and time and people, none of which they have. So you look to things besides weapons and armor for players to pursue, like titles, which Destiny has, housing, which Destiny doesn't, or best of all, character customization, which Destiny decided to lock behind a microtransaction store. Good move in the short term, bad move in the long term. But if Destiny really does die, what will deliver the final push is its inability to replace its aging population. It's how goddamn tough it is to be a new player. It's
Good God, we're not that old. I don't know how old we are in comparison to like the other gaming communities out there. But these fucking old people stretching on yoga mats, that ain't us, man.
It's how hard it is to play Destiny. When Frontiers comes out and the game is forced to host incomplete chunks of the second half of the old saga, and also the beginning of the new saga, it will become even harder. If anything can kill this game, that's what will do it. And if it dies, it'll deserve to. But the thing is, I don't want Destiny to die. Because that would be immature, but like, I don't hate it. I don't even dislike the game. Honestly, it's pretty good. I'm just frustrated with it, disappointed in it. Sometimes I've been appalled by it, but I don't hate it. I hate that I don't love it anymore. It's complicated. Here's some more complicated. I really want Frontiers to be good. I want nothing but the best for Destiny. I still want to love this game again. I don't think it'll happen, but I want it to. I'm still hoping. That's tough, because that's how I've always felt, and it's let them get away with everything. It's had me open my wallet year after year to pay too much for too little. It wasn't even Bungie who made half the best things about it. All those moments from raid LFGs, playing with friends, belonging to a wonderful community. And here's what's really tough. It was worth it. $40 for good memories? That's some of the best money I'll ever spend. Destiny is worth more than its own content because it is a social platform. It always has been. What am I supposed to make of that? I have no idea. I don't think there's a simple answer. If I hadn't accepted that, this video would have cracked and shattered like all the times I tried before it. The last bit of complicated I've got for you is this. I've never fallen out of love with a game before, because most games don't change enough for that to happen. Arkham Knight is still the same game it was a year ago, and it'll still be that game in 10 years' time. But the most I ever loved Destiny is gone. I mean, Forsaken is really gone. But what about the first game? You can play it again, but you can't bring back the people who made it special. Its questions can't be unanswered. It can't be rediscovered. In some part, Destiny wasn't a game, it was a moment. The best of its times were times. Times change, moments pass, people move on. Then that moment becomes a memory. Destiny is dead. I'm not used to games dying. It's sad, but not wrong. Destiny is alive. For now, at least. Many things make it worthy of that life. The gameplay, the sheer amount of content, Heresy, which is shockingly good as seasons go. Will Frontiers be good? I don't know. Maybe. Kinda doubt it, but I hope so. I hope they figure out the loot problem and the PvP. I hope.
How dramatic. He's making a good point, guys. I mean, but that's you could compare that to a lot of things. Think about the first time you experience something. And I mean, we could just keep it to video games. The first time you experience Destiny, the first time you experience Zelda, the first time you experience hell, GoldenEye back in the day or some shit, you know what I mean? For me, RuneScape, you know, I can never recapture the feeling that it felt when I was slaying goblins in Lumbridge and I just leveled up to like level 9 or 10 and I was like, dude, I'm loving this game. If I kill enough goblins, I'm gonna get me the an iron scimitar in just a second. You know what I mean? But there's some things you just can't recapture. I mean, maybe you can't. Like, I'm trying to think of like ways. Is there a way they can recapture? Like, I don't even think a D3 could recapture that, because D3 would be like, all right, now what's the meta? You know what I'm saying? Like D3, if D3 was to roll out and there was like a fresh take on the Destiny universe, sure. But it would still be Destiny. Would it still intrigue us like the first Destiny did way back when? It can't just be the same as it was forever. Then it would just be a single player story game or whatever. I mean, man, just think about it, guys. The first time you got your ass licked, maybe the second or third time, maybe the 50th time, there might be some standout moments. But some things you just can't come back to. Guys, some things are meant to just be looked back on fondly. You know what I mean?
Wherever we go, it's a world of wonder and thought, and nothing like the places we're used to. I hope I can't help but fill it with imagination, and that eventually we'll get answers that are big and strange and interesting. Like, In the game, not on Bife's YouTube channel. And if that happens, I believe the rest will follow suit. I believe there'll be people again, and love, and its flaws will be worth tolerating. I hope it'll make everyone happy, even though that's not possible. I hope Destiny will get to be a moment worth being there for again, but I will not let hope lure me into another raw deal. And if it's none of those things, I'm okay with that now. Destiny, I let you go.
All right. That was a good
Special
video.
Thanks go out to Ren's Reviews for so much of this video's Destiny 1 footage. And for my patrons, L. Hudson, Lex
That was good
Williams,
stuff, though.
Andre Baltuta, Holy Shift, Dennis Williams.
Was happy that he shared his big shout out to White Light, guys, if y'all want to check out his content. What I will say, and just like this scene right here where you're sitting right here, you're looking at the Traveler and the echo is going off, or echoes. I want Frontiers to be good, but guys, if Destiny was to die tomorrow, whatever, if Destiny was to die, and like when I say die, like dead, server shut down, the Final Shape may not have captured the sense of exploration and intrigue that Destiny 1 first captured for us. But hot damn it, it tried. It tried to deliver. It tried to give us the finale that we all asked for. And I don't think I have had a game experience like we did the 60 days leading up to the Final Shape. From Into the Light to Pantheon to everyone busting their ass over the 2-3 day period there on the launch of Final Shape when the servers finally let us in, to no life in the raid and no one sleeping, to beating the raid, to then turning around, going to Excision and finishing off the Witness, and then the final send-off for Cade and how they wrapped up that story, and then us still having our ghosts, like, and sharing this moment. Like, it was great, man. I mean, look, it was wonderful. And I know the player dip-off doesn't show that. And I hope Bungie, this is my concern with Bungie, is like Bungie may see this and go, oh, players, they dipped off. We did something wrong with the Final Shape. No, Final Shape was great. There, you know, you could point to a few flaws here and there, but it was great, man. And I couldn't have envisioned a better send-off than that expansion. How do you bring back Cade and then allow us to let him go all within the same expansion, all within the same time frame? You know what I mean? The fact that he comes back and then within the same week, we let him go again and we're fine with it. No. We understood it. They didn't fuck that up, man. They crushed it. We understood the pain. Imagine coming back to life, but you don't have your loved one or your loved ones, or whatever. And you're like, now you have to live in this world alone. And that's the way he felt, not having his ghost. Bro, fine with it, brother. That shit hurt. It hurt, but he got to make his own decision. And I respected it. You know what I mean? Guardians, make your own fate. That shit, you're my favorite. Oh my God. The decision we got to make was understanding where he was coming from and letting him go. You know what I mean? Selfishly, I think we all wanted to keep Cade around. All I can say about Destiny, though, is there's a lot of issues that Frontier is going to have to address. I think one of the biggest issues from this particular video was that lapsed players and new players are having a difficult time getting into Destiny. And barriers are the biggest problem. Both barriers to content, barriers to narrative, and barriers in terms of monetization. You should not have to drop hundreds of dollars to then understand the narrative and then have all these different weapons and stuff that you can't even earn properly anymore. And it's like there needs to be a better system. I'm hoping, what's the thing they mentioned? There's going to be a little screen that pops up, the portal. There's supposed to be a screen that pops up when you jump into Destiny. And obviously, like, veteran players are not going to have to rely on the portal, although we could if we wanted to. But supposedly, this is going to be a much easier way for new players and lapsed players to jump back into Destiny stuff. I think Frontier should be used as a bridge gap for Destiny 3. Build off the great things D2 has brought. That way, whatever changes can be made because of D2 can be added onto into D3. But, here's the thing about a D3, everybody. In my opinion, I do not believe D3 can be made while content is still rolling out for D2. However, and this is something you guys may have to ask yourselves. This may be a question Bungie themselves may have to ask themselves. Are you okay waiting 5-6 years for a D3 and absolutely nothing happening in Destiny 2? Nothing. Not a raid, not a dungeon, not an expansion, not a season. 5-6 years, nothing in Destiny 2, and just waiting for a Destiny 3. That's a long time, man. That's a long time. And who knows? Maybe that ends up happening. Maybe if Marathon ends up toting things so well and making so much money, Bungie goes, all right, we're going to back off the team and we're going to just have everyone sit there and we'll work on D3 for the next 5-6 years. 2030 rolls around, we'll launch a Destiny 3. Cope? No, Cope would be Destiny 2 will maintain content while a Destiny 3 is being made. That's the Cope. Are we okay with saying goodbye to Destiny for 5 to 6 years for a D3 that probably will be identical to D2? Just saying. Identical. Very, very likely going to be the same. But good part is that in 5-6 years, we'll probably even forget what D2 was even like. We'll be like, oh my God, look at this. It's last word. Ooh. If a D3 was going to come out, you will earn every weapon in Destiny 3 that you already have in Destiny 2. Guarantee it. Trash the Tiger engine, rebuild it on Unreal, and we're cooking. Now you guys are coping. You see what I'm saying? You guys are coping. You think Bungie's going to build something else? You think they're going to build Destiny on an engine they don't own? Brother, you're coping. Bungie don't play those games. It's a money decision. It really is a money decision. They ain't going to do it, man. Let me just say this. Tiger engine ain't going nowhere. Is Marathon on the Tiger engine? Yes. 1000%. It is on the Tiger engine. Guess what the next game Bungie's going to make? Guess what it's going to be on? The Tiger engine. I'm not kidding. That's their engine. It's their motherfucking engine. Boycott Marathon. Hell yeah, brothers. Hell yeah. I say, look, everyone to the tower. Let us all stand in solidarity right there next to Zavala. We shall make our stand today. We shall hold up our fists and let them know we are not playing Marathon. Slap that like button like your mama told you right.